next week. Let's bring in one of those senators, Marsha Blackburn, Republican from Tennessee, who sits on both the Senate Judiciary and Armed Services Committees. Senator, good to have you back with us.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
First of all, what have you been told thus far about the operation in Iraq that took out Soleimani, or are you waiting for that briefing next week?
We are getting some information. We will have that classified briefing next week, and we look forward to it. But Shannon, we have to realize that Soleimani is a known terrorist. This is someone who had been the mastermind of terrorist attacks on 6 continents, including attacks here in the United States. He had been sanctioned by not only the U.S., but also the EU and the UN. He was in violation of UN regulations. He had cost hundreds of American lives. He had cost thousands of lives around the globe. And we knew that he was going to pose a direct threat. That threat had been articulated by our intelligence community. They had identified the location of Soleimani. And I think it's important to note also that President Obama chose to send aid and comfort and pallets of cash to the Iranians. And when we knew that they were a threat, they used that money to inflict pain on us and our allies. So Obama sends piles of cash, and what does Trump do? He sends in Hellfire missiles and Reaper drones, and he eliminates Qasem Soleimani, who had posed such a threat to the American people.
Senator, let me ask you about a couple of points there. You bring up the deal with the money, the unmarked bills that went over to this administration over there, and the leaders in Iran, and we don't know exactly what happened with that, but we can imagine some of those things were not so positive. But there are those who say the president pulling out of that particular deal led us to the place that we are now. In TheNation.com, the assassination of Soleimani escalates the threat of war. They write this: Trump's decision to walk away from the deal launched an economic war in the form of new devastating sanctions, and announce a policy of maximum pressure against Iran set the stage for the dangerous escalation we are seeing right now. And they question where we go from here, saying that U.S. troops and American citizens are now in more danger than they were before. How do you respond?
I respond to that by saying they should have been asking, what kind of escalation did the Iran nuclear deal actually cause? Because the sanctions were lifted on Soleimani in that nuclear deal. They were removed from him. So once the sanctions were off, Shannon, what was the first place he went? He went to Russia. He was asking Russia for their help. And of course, you know, I believe that Russia, Iran, China, and North Korea, that is your new axis of evil. So I think that the question is exactly the flip side. Actions of Donald Trump did not escalate tensions. What it has done is to de-escalate. Why do you think there are these pictures of those in the Middle East dancing in the streets? Because Soleimani has been removed.
Senator, I want to make sure I ask you about impeachment before you go, because we're still waiting to find out if there's going to be a Senate trial, if the articles are going to come over. There were these 2 court hearings today where attorneys for House Democrats are essentially arguing that they need this information from the Mueller grand jury report, from Don McGahn's testimony, because they could come up with even more articles, even though they haven't sent over the 2 that they have. Speaker Nancy Pelosi saying this: today, Leader McConnell made clear that he will feebly comply with President Trump's cover-up of his abuses of power and be an accomplice to that cover-up. She wants to be sure that there will be a, quote, fair trial, or she's not sending these articles to you guys in the Senate.
I think Nancy Pelosi needs to realize that the U.S. Constitution gives her no ability to try to direct the activities of the U.S. Senate. And we're not going to take up anything until they send it to us. Leader McConnell is stating what the position of Republicans in the Senate are and where and how we would move forward. And I think this just shows that Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats are never going to give up. They cannot stand Donald Trump. They are so jealous of the fact that the American people support him. He is one of the most admired men in the country. I've been all over West Tennessee on the past couple of days, and Shannon, People are happy with their paychecks. I've even had some come up and say, I'm a Trump Democrat, because they feel like that Donald Trump is doing such a great job. He's going to be reelected. The Democrats are showing us they believe they cannot beat him.
Well,
and what they're going to do is try to just tie him up with all of these impeachment articles, one after another.
Yeah, we'll see if they make it to you at your desk over there in the Senate. In the meantime, Senator, good to have you back with us. Thanks so much, and Happy New Year.
Thank you. You too.
All right, the president says he